Now, it's my distinct honor to introduce you Maryland's Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford. Lieutenant Governor Rutherford has been a strong supporter of the port and its environmental programs, and also is one of the driving forces for us committing to having the Green Ports Conference here in Maryland. So ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Governor Rutherford.
Well, thank you, Earl, and good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of Governor Hogan and our entire administration, we too want to welcome you to rainy Maryland and Baltimore. Yeah, you picked a great week to be here. It's not always raining here, okay? It's not always, just this week it seems to be raining all the time, but that's okay. It'll still be great. The Preakness Stakes will be great. If you're going to stay for an extra day or so and enjoy horse racing, either seeing the horses run or losing your money on the horses. Last year on a hunch, I bet on cloud computing, who won, and that was just on a hunch. I did bet a lot because I don't like to lose. So I'm hoping to be able to have a hunch and bet on the winner this time. But we're honored to have you here. We and the Port of Baltimore are honored to host the North America first ever Green Ports Congress. Our port continues, as was just mentioned by Earl, to be a point of pride for our state. And not only because of its business success, but also its incredible environmental achievements. When it comes to safeguarding our environment, and particularly the Chesapeake Bay, Maryland has been proactive, bold, and aggressive in this regard. We push landmark legislation to cement our state's position as a national and international leader in combating greenhouse gas emissions. We enacted clean air standards, which are stronger than 48 other states and are twice as strong as the Paris Accords recommendations. As chairman of the 6-state Chesapeake Executive Council, Governor Hogan has been leading the fight to protect and restore funding for the Chesapeake Bay. We have fully funded bay restoration efforts, including the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bay Trust Fund and Program Open Space. In total, our administration has committed a historic $4 billion towards bay initiatives, and we have made tremendous progress in this regard. In fact, the annual report card for the Chesapeake Bay received the highest score for water quality in a quarter of a century. The bay's underwater grasses are surging, surpassing 100,000 acres for the first time in modern history. And when you go across the Francis Scott Key Bridge to once was the largest steel mill in the United States, Sparrows Point, and a century of steelmaking, of course, had resulted in a complex cleanup that had to be undertaken. And now that same site holds great promise with Trade Point Atlantic, which is already home to a Federal Express distribution center, an Under Armour warehouse, as well as other companies. And on the banks of the Inner Harbor near Fells Point, not very far from here, a factory that produced chromium chemicals for more than a century is now an area that houses the 21-story Exelon headquarters and surrounding residential and commercial properties. And of course, as was mentioned before, the Helen Gillich Bentley Port of Baltimore is one of the busiest and best performing ports in the nation, which continues to break records month after month and year after year. Growing the port is important to us, and so is cleaning up the air and water surrounding the port. And that is why we're equally proud of the environmental progress the port has made in recent years. The port's Clean Diesel program, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Environment, has moved more than 9,000 tons of air pollutants removed that amount of air pollutants through an initiative to retrofit and replace cargo handling equipment like yard tractors and forklifts. The 172 dray trucks have been replaced under the Dray Truck Replacement Program, where older cargo handling vehicles are replaced with newer and cleaner models. The port is using green technology on its gantry cranes and fleet vehicles to reduce pollutants. It is also reducing millions of kilowatts in electric energy by installing energy-efficient measures and improving water quality with floating wetlands near the Colgate Creek Bridge in Dundalk, at the Dundalk Marine Terminal, and at the World Trade Center in Baltimore. In addition, the Port of Baltimore is installing trees, plantings on shores of dredged material sites, and is helping to fund our oyster restoration program, and utilizing algae turf scrubbers that promote the growth of natural algae and release dissolved oxygen into the water. We are pleased to see the Port Administration has funded 3 trash wheels, I think I heard something about that are powered by river currents and solar energy that collect floating bags, bottles, as well as other trash. And the Port's dredge material program is nationally renowned for its rebuilding and used to rebuild long eroded islands in Maryland waters using the sediment dredged from the channels leading to the Port of Baltimore. Both Poplar Island and Hart Miller Island have been rebuilt to their original acreage and today are home to hundreds of waterfowl and wildlife species. I believe Earl was mentioning that you'll have a chance to visit Poplar Island later in this conference. I think if you go during the day, you'll miss the thunderstorms, so that should be good. Masonville Cove, which was a formerly severely polluted area in Baltimore and once home to shipbreaking operations, is now one of the largest environmental restoration projects in Maryland. More than 61,000 tons of trash and debris dating back 100 years were removed from the site. And today the site is home to an urban wildlife area, environmental education centers, where 2,000 students and visitors experience outdoor hands-on environmental activities each year. We're excited about the work that is being done here at Port of Baltimore and throughout the state of Maryland, and I'm sure that all of you excuse me, have experience working on projects similar to the ones that are finding success here. It's very clear that working together, we must continue to create as well as encourage an effective balance between growing our economy and safeguarding our environment. I want to thank you all again so much for being here today and enjoy this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Rutherford.